Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jaxie. Today's video, as you can see from the title, is my birth story. I actually had my son almost a whole year ago, and it's just crazy to say that he's almost a year old. He'll be a year in March, and so I thought this would be the perfect time to tell his story. I just wanted to be kind of casual, just talking to like a friend about my story with him and his story. You know, normally people do these videos like right after. He kind of had a couple of hiccups. We both had a couple of hiccups with crazy things that I wasn't expecting at all, and it took me a while to actually be able to even like talk about it. I guess think about the experience that I did have. We'll get into that probably a little bit why and everything that happened, but I have my water here. Just some notes about it to keep me on track, and hopefully I don't get off too many times. Just a couple of disclaimers. This was my first baby. It's my first time in labor. I also wanted to mention that I'm so thankful that he is alive and for what has happened, but it doesn't lessen the fact that I had these feelings or like the trauma we experienced throughout this, because I think people forget that even though he is alive and that he is okay, it doesn't mean that we didn't go through some things. It doesn't mean that we didn't have trauma because of what happened. And my goal is to first and foremost to give glory to God for him being here and the miracle that he did in my and Ashton's and Asher's life, and to tell his story. I had been wanting to tell his story for a while and couldn't really figure out how I wanted to and the best way for me to be able to do that, and I think this is gonna be really good opportunity to do that through this video. But I also wanted to be able to talk about this and about my first birth experience, that hopefully other moms out there or people who are pregnant, that you can relate to this, and that more people will talk about the experiences even if they weren't the best or like what you had planned. This was definitely not what I had planned, so I hope that you can relate to that, and please give me grace going through this because I am going to try not to cry and try not to get on too many tangents, but we will see. Okay, so a little backstory. I had a really good pregnancy. Okay, another disclaimer was, I don't know if I've actually even told very many people this story. Ashton, my husband, might have told a couple people. I really think very few people actually know like what happened with Asher and me. I feel very vulnerable talking about it, especially to the whole internet. All right, let's just jump into it. I had a pretty good pregnancy. Didn't really have any morning sickness. There for a little bit I had a couple of food aversions, but it didn't really last that long, and other than that it was pretty good. I went into, I don't remember exactly what appointment it was. It was after Christmas and Thanksgiving, and she had mentioned that I was gaining weight a little bit faster than what she would like. Everything else had been fine, and I honestly just thought it was because of Christmas break. My job that I was at, I was walking a lot, up and down stairs a lot, and then being off for 2 weeks and just eating. I figured I had probably just gained a little bit more. Then we went in, I think I was 34 weeks, and it was on a Monday. I went after work, and Ashton actually met me. I remember going in, got weighed, all that stuff, and she checked my blood pressure, and it was really high, which was really surprising because my blood pressure has been like perfect the whole time, and it's perfect now. That was a little concerning to them. And so when she came in and she said with the weight gain and the high blood pressure that I was like pre-eclampsia. It wasn't preeclampsia yet. You have to have like so many symptoms, I guess, to be preeclampsia, and I wasn't quite there yet. She told us with the high blood pressure that no matter what, he was going to be coming at 37 weeks. If he didn't come sooner, at 37 weeks he was going to be here, which was quite surprising to us and a little taken back. We didn't really have anything ready. Ashton had actually been planning on going to a spring break mission trip, which would have been the following week. I really didn't want him to go on that because she had said any time between now and then that he would be here, and we live 3 hours away from family, and we definitely do have friends up here, but no close family, and I didn't know what the heck I would do if I had to have him and he wasn't here. So after we got told that, she wanted me to get monitored at the hospital, to check my blood pressure for a while, and to check my urine and see if there was any proteins in my urine. I'm not really sure, but we went and got monitored, and like nothing was too big of a deal. It was just a little high, so we got sent home. I just was told that I think it was like Tuesday and Thursday I was going to be monitored. Up until then, honey, your nose is in the way, just to make sure everything was good. So that was a Monday, and then I was going in Thursday to get monitored. Like whenever the monitor goes on, like if you're high, it like starts beeping, and so like I was in there and it started beeping, and then this nurse, no hate to the nurse, but she really just made me nervous, more nervous than probably what I already would have been anyways. But she like came in, she wasn't telling me very much, and my doctor had already told me if I come in with high blood pressure, it's happening, we're having him, like no matter what, because I can go into seizures. There's lots of different things that you can do with high blood pressure. and the baby, and that just wasn't safe for me or for him. So we knew that going into it. I just wasn't expecting it so soon. So that was already in the back of my head that if I had high blood pressure, we were coming in. So I texted Ashton. I was like, I'm in here with the high blood pressure, and he like hurried and came and was sitting with me, and we were just waiting for like this lady. Like I had no idea what she was doing. I felt like we were waiting there forever, and then she finally got a hold of my doctor, I guess. I don't know. And she's like, we're gonna admit you. And I was like, okay, I kind of knew that, but I wish you would have just told me because I had no idea like what we were waiting on. And during that time, right around when everything started happening, Thursday was March 12th, and they had just started like canceling and shutting down things. And so my husband got on the phone, his boss and a couple other people, and just decided to cancel the mission trip, which was thank goodness because he wasn't going to be going anyways because we were having this baby. That's when we were waiting. We weren't really sure what the heck was going on, but he went ahead and canceled it, and then we got admitted and we were in there. And I remember my doctor like finally got to see her, and I was so nervous, and like I love my doctor so much and I trust her. So like anything that she wanted to do, I mean obviously you think about it and do what you think is best, but I trusted her medical opinion. So we got in there and got situated. Some of this is a little blurry because it has been so long, but it was Thursday evening, and I remember she just was talking to us about what was going to happen, that they were going to put me on Pitocin and just check my progression. I don't think I started Pitocin that night. No. Anyway, so we were just getting situated. Ashton went and got our bags and got us some stuff, and we were staying the night. It was funny because Ashton was like, when is like, I think he thought it was just gonna happen like so fast, but I knew because I was like nowhere near labor that it was gonna probably take a while. I don't really know what time, but it was early in the morning. They started me the next morning, Friday the 13th. Should have known with the date. They started me on Pitocin. She broke my water. After a little bit after that, I was a 3. I never progressed further than a 3 with the Pitocin. It did make me very uncomfortable, and I really wanted her to check because I wanted to be further along, but I didn't really think I was. Checked again, I was a 3. I had always heard that you could get your epidural too early, and then like when you're actually ready to start pushing that it wouldn't be working. But I asked my nurse and she was like, no, that's not true. So I just was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get the epidural. Like I wanted to wait longer. I wanted to see how far I could make it, but it's just, I was uncomfortable. And another thing was I feel like I didn't get to prepare like at all, like how the heck to breathe during contractions or anything like that. I was very, very unprepared. And that is something I would definitely change for the next one, is learning how to breathe and how to control those contractions. So I got my epidural. The epidural was like a breeze. Like I thought it was gonna, I don't know, some people say it's no big deal, some people it really bothers them. I don't even think I felt anything. Like after it was done, I was like, wow, like that was, I didn't feel a thing. It was like so nice. I was so comfortable afterwards. Oh, I didn't mention that I was on magnesium. I was on magnesium like the whole time for my blood pressure, and magnesium is no joke. You can't get out of bed. I feel like my contractions were so uncomfortable because I just had to lay there in bed. But with magnesium, I like had a terrible headache. I couldn't have like any lights on, any TV on. I was basically just sitting there in the dark. It also made my legs swell even more than they were, which I didn't know that till afterwards. They say it makes you feel like you have the flu, which I just felt so hot and so uncomfortable, and on top of contractions and everything, it just was not fun. It wasn't fun. Okay, so somewhere in between getting my epidural and this, I was so tired. I was like trying to get comfortable. I was on my side, and the nurse had the contraction monitor and then the other little band to monitor my baby's heart rate. I was like kind of in and out. I was like, I gotta stay awake because I think something's up. I was also so exhausted. So I was kind of in and out, and I could tell the nurse was, maybe she wasn't, but to me it seemed like she was kind of stressed out. She was kind of doing something, and I was, maybe I should be a little worried, but I didn't want to be worried until I needed to be worried. So she was like sitting there, she was like, couldn't find his heart rate very well. So when she was doing that, I think she had like went out and probably went to call my doctor. Doctor came in. She just gave me so much comfort. I don't know, I can't explain it. It was such a God thing with her, and like how much I trusted her actually being able to be there, like she wasn't like somewhere else while this was happening, was a blessing from the Lord. And I remember when she came in there, I just like lost it, I'm pretty sure, because she just made me feel so comfortable, and it was like I trusted her opinion, and I really wanted her to tell me what the heck was going on. She had already told us that everything was fine, everything was good, and that she would tell us when she was worried. So she came in and said, I told you guys I would tell you when I'm worried, and I'm worried. She said that with every contraction, like every time it happened, my baby's heart rate was going down, and it just kept doing that over and over, and she didn't like to see that, and like the more that I did that, it could cause problems, and that I needed to have an emergency C-section. I'd already had in my head, no matter what, we were gonna do whatever we can to keep me and the baby safe. Okay, get over what you wanted and this mindset you had of everything, just trying to get him here safely. That's just not what I had wanted or I had planned, and like your little perfect birth plan or perfect having the baby, it just wasn't what I wanted, but it's what we had to do. I remember just being so nervous. So I remember Ashton was getting his gown and everything on, and he was like excited. He's like, the baby's gonna be here. And I don't know how to explain it to you guys. I don't know if I just was trying to, I don't really know. I just know that I felt like, I'm usually an optimistic person, but I felt like I just couldn't let myself be relieved yet until he was here. So I remember like being wheeled in there, and I was so nervous. I was shaking. The anesthesiologist, this was a different one than the one who had gave me my epidural. He was like trying to joke with me and talk to me, and I'm so thankful for that because I was so nervous. I just was so nervous, and I could tell Ashton like was too. I just know that I was like thankful that this guy was talking to me, even though it probably didn't seem like that. I probably didn't laugh or make a thing, but I was so thankful that he was like talking and joking with me because it made me feel like it was like a bit more normal than actually it was being in that OR. I don't know if it's OR, wherever I was being operated on. Anyway, so they told me everything was gonna kind of happen, and that I was gonna feel some pressure, and they had the little thing up, and I just remember waiting there. I honestly it grossed me out, honestly, so I was trying not to think about what the heck they were doing. I just was waiting to hear my baby cry, because I just know that if you can hear them cry, that means they're good, they're healthy. I just wanted to hear his voice. I don't know how long it was, but we were sitting there waiting, and Ashton says he doesn't remember this, but I remember hearing his one little cry, sorry. I remember he made like one little thing, and I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus, that I heard him at least. And then they took him, I don't know if I think they tried to show me him. I couldn't see him. They took him off to go get cleaned up or whatever and weigh him. The nurse like ran over to us and was like, it looks like he's 4 pounds. We were like, okay, 4 pounds. Because we were told that maybe like right around 5 pounds. Oh, another thing is we had scheduled, it would have been that following Monday, we were gonna have a 3D ultrasound to see how big he was, but obviously that didn't happen. Anyways, so the nurse came and she told us 4 pounds. We're like, okay, woohoo, 4 pounds. And then she like came back, actually looks like 3 pounds. And we were like, oh my gosh, like that is so little. I do not remember basically at all from hearing 3 pounds to like being wheeled back out into our room. I had no idea what was happening with him. Ashton may have, I'm not really for sure. We were just waiting, it felt like forever. And then we had a doctor come in, and it was really hard to understand him. I remember him saying that he stopped breathing. Ashton says that he said like anywhere from like 5 to 8 minutes he stopped breathing. I don't remember that. I just remember hearing that he stopped breathing, and I was waiting to hear if he was still here. I know that can sound bad, but I just was waiting for the words that either he isn't here or he is. But he said we got him to breathe again, and he was like explaining all this stuff like I didn't really understand. I guess they tried to put the tube down his throat and it wouldn't go down. That's when they realized that something was wrong and that it's where his esophagus didn't meet to his stomach. It's called a EATEF fistula. We didn't really know much about it. I don't even know if I actually knew that at the time. They had come in and they said, well, he's gonna be transferred. We had him at Integris here in Edmond. He was going to be transferred to Baptist, which had a NICU, which they already had that set up. They already had a doctor there for him just in case something happened, because I don't think I mentioned, I was 35 weeks when I had him exactly on that Friday. So they had that all set up. So they were trying to figure out what was going on, because they thought, oh, maybe his lungs could, that's another thing, is like when they're that premature, their lungs couldn't be fully developed. And so she had gave me steroids. Like as soon as she found out that I had blood pressure, she gave me steroids, which was another like blessing, because I think a doctor asked her like, how'd you know to give her that? And she was like, I just knew I needed to give her to her. So that was from the Lord. When you go back and think about this, it's like in the moment it's like, what the heck is going on? But there were so many times that the Lord had showed up. Sorry. It's like, even though that you didn't think so, or that this wasn't like, he was there, he was already planning, he already had this planned in for Asher's life and for my life. He had already set this up for him and been watching over him, and it's just amazing to actually look back and like see all these things that he had did. Anyways, so he had left, and then they had came back. That's when they told us that he had something wrong and he was going to need to be moved to Children's because it was that severe and the Baptist couldn't deal with what was wrong with him. After they got told that, Ashton was like instantly got his stuff and left because I had a C-section. I wasn't going to be able to be transferred. I wasn't going to be able to be moved, but he needed to be moved. So Ashton got his stuff. He was already gone whenever they told us he was going to go to Baptist. So he was on his way to Baptist, and I was being told that he was moved to Children's, so I like hurried and called him. Like, this was all very confusing, like stressful time. Then they told me I was going to be able to see him for the first time before he went to Children's. So they wheeled him in this little like incubator, I feel like, and he looked so pitiful. Like, it was so sad. He was so tiny. I'll insert a picture of like the first time I ever saw him. I don't think anyone's have seen it because to me it's like really sad. This was probably like a really hard moment for me because you can't hold him. Didn't know what I could do, and I also was just like seeing him. I just was almost just like, please get him there and help him. But like, I didn't realize how much of a long process it was going to be, and I also was like pretty in and out of it. Anyway, so they transferred him to the NICU at Oklahoma Children's, and Ashton got to be there with them, and they checked him all out and everything. Ashton sent me some pictures of him, and it was a really tough time for me because I was obviously grateful and thankful that he was alive and he was there and that Ashton could be with him and was there, but I was also so jealous and so frustrated. For me, it was like you wait for that moment to have your baby on your chest, like after you have him, and I never got to have that moment. It was more of just full of fear, and it's easy to say that like in the moment just to give it all to the Lord, and I wish I could have done that. I wish I could have been strong enough to do that, but I wasn't. I was honestly, I think, just trying to, I have big feelings, so when I feel something, it's like big and it's hard and it's like full force. Growing up, I got told that I wear my heart on my sleeve, and that's another tangent because that bothers me so much. I don't think anyone should hear that. It's okay to have feelings. It's okay to have emotions. But during this like time, I was trying to keep myself, this is gonna sound so bad, I didn't want to be happy and thankful because I didn't know if I would ever get to meet him. I didn't want to be so scared and think I wasn't gonna meet him. I was trying to just feel nothing, and I think that's one of the reasons why it took me so long to be able to think about it or talk about it, because I had pushed off every emotion, which I do not recommend. I was jealous because Ashton got to see our baby and I hadn't yet, and I was scared to death that I would never get to see him or hold him, and so that was definitely a big struggle. And the feelings like I had to work through afterwards and like actually feeling them instead of like shoving them down, I just was like full survival mode. Like, I feel like I was fighting and flighting at the same time. So this is when we first learned about his condition, and I had never heard of this before happening to anyone. I had no idea what it was. It is a rare condition that can happen. It happens while they're in your stomach, and you can't really, there's no way to detect it until after they are born. It's called EATEF. I have it pulled up because I probably could not say it, but I'm just gonna put it down here so you can read it. I do have some stuff pulled up to tell you a little bit about it so that I am not misleading you about it, but it's where his esophagus wasn't connected to his stomach. He had the most common type, and I'll put that up here with a picture of like what it looks like. That's like when he came out, that's why he couldn't breathe, because he had fluid. We swallow our saliva. There's no way for him to do that. That was like his whole big issue. Plus he was tiny, 3 pounds 10 ounces, the smallest little baby ever. I'll put some pictures up here because he was so small. So that's when we started his journey in the NICU. So first off, a big blessing was that there was nothing else wrong with him. He breathed, like that's another big thing. Usually they can't breathe very well. They wait for their lungs to develop more. His lungs were great. There was nothing else wrong with him besides the EATEF. Also a big, we had our whole church praying for him afterwards, and our whole church and like our church family at Heavener, there were so many people, our family or friends, that were praying for him, and I fully believe that God healed him from the other things that could have been wrong with him. And normally with EATEF babies, that there is, I think it's like up to, I will put down what it is, like the percentage that they normally do have Vactoral syndrome, put that up there, which just means that he would, with this birth defect, he normally would have something else or multiple other birth defects. Thankfully, and glory to God, that he only had this one. So he had to have full around care at the NICU, and I didn't really know if I wanted to go into his NICU experience. I'm gonna try and sum up his NICU experience. If you guys would like for me to talk about or have questions about that, I would be glad to answer if you leave them in the comments, or I can make a video just specifically about his NICU stay. So I was still in the hospital for I think like 2 days. I was in there Thursday, stayed Friday, and I got to leave on Sunday. day, and that night I finally got to see him and hold him. I was so nervous. It's such a different experience. Maybe it's just me and the type of person I am, but I was like, I don't know what I can and can't do, even though that is your baby. And that's another thing that was like so frustrating. It's like I just want to do the normal things with them, but it wasn't a normal experience. I remember like Ashton rolling me in because I had to be in a wheelchair because I had a C-section, and C-sections are no joke. I couldn't walk by myself very well for quite a while. I finally got to hold him and I didn't want to leave, but I was so exhausted and tired and needed to rest that I needed to go home, but I did not want to leave. And that is probably one of the worst things I will say for NICU stay is having to leave. Our NICU doesn't have like a room where you can sit and stay. They do like put people in a hotel nearby. The children's hospital is OKC and we live in Edmond, so it was about a 30-minute drive. So we just drove back and forth for a while. But that was the hardest thing, is leaving him all the time. To sum up his NICU experience, we had to wait quite a while for him to get bigger before he could have this extensive surgery to repair his esophagus. They have to go through a rib and deflate a lung and put him on anesthesia, and then they have to inflate the lung back, and then he has to wake up. And because he was so little, they wanted to wait until he was bigger, just because of how extensive the surgery is. I don't think many people knew like how big of a surgery it was. We were so nervous waiting in the waiting room to hear back about his surgery. I didn't know how long it would take, and they actually came back sooner than I had hoped, which was like kind of good and bad. I don't know if something happened or like I'm glad to hear news, but thankfully the surgery went great, and they said it was an easier one of these type of surgeries. Sometimes they have to stretch the esophagus if it's not long enough, and that can cause some issues, but they didn't have to do that, which we were very thankful for. The surgery was over and that he was well, and it was time to start the healing process. There were a few things after surgery. He took out his breathing tube. They had to bag him, which they do not want them to do after this type of surgery because it can mess up everything that they just did, but it was an emergency and they had to bag him. And so you have to wait, I think it was like a week, and they put something in there so they can see if he has any leaks. And so we were really nervous. We did not want him to have to go through this surgery again. After they checked, everything was great, and then we were just trying to get him eating. That took a little while, and then we finally got to bring him home, and he has been doing great so far. Sometimes EATEF babies have to have dilations to stretch out their esophagus because of where they sewed it together. So far we haven't had any issues like that. We do have to be extremely careful with him eating. The doctor said like the only thing that he might have to do is that he would have to chew his Whataburger a little slower than the other kids, but that he should be great, and that most kids that have this and have surgery are doing normal things besides just making sure that they're chewing their food really slow and getting it down pretty good. That was our birth story. I hope you enjoyed it, and once again, my intention wasn't to scare you. It was just to be vulnerable and real and tell you guys what our experience was in my birth story with Asher. Maybe you can relate. I just wanted to give glory to God for what he did in Asher's life. I could name off so many things that when you look back now, and that he was just working this out already. I think I hear Asher, and I'll go get him and show you guys him now. Say hi. Hi. Say I'm 10 months old and I'm so sweet. Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and I hope you can give me grace because this is a very just real and vulnerable birth story, and I know mine wasn't perfect and probably not what everyone wants to listen to. I hope that you can relate to me and that this is something you enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and like this video. You say give it a thumbs up. Say bye. Bye guys. Say thanks for watching.